week on Side Grace, we are talking about permission. And what do I mean by permission? Well, when we were kids and we were in school and we were given these permission slips to take home to our parents to sign off to say, so and so is allowed to go to this field trip, and I give my child permission to go. Well, that's kind of the same as what we're talking about today, but in a different form. What I'm talking about today is that you have the permission to, and then you fill in the blank there. And what that means is that you are going to allow yourself the permission to feel things, say things, stand up for yourself, set boundaries, so many different ways that you can allow yourself permission. Oftentimes, when we are wanting to do the things that protect us, we might feel that bout of guilt sitting in the back of our head, right? So this podcast episode is really to facilitate a conversation about the permission that you can now start giving yourself, right? I want to remind you that you have permission to feel those things, to do those things, to say those things. You have permission, and you don't need that permission from anyone else but yourself. So this is going to be really an empowering conversation, as well as the benefits that we can reap from the permission and setting permissions with ourselves, as well as how do we tactically use it in our everyday life. So before we get into the podcast, I asked some of you on my Instagram accounts of what you allow yourself to have permission of. And I got various of different answers, and I am so grateful for those who did reply. And so I'm going to read them all for you right now. So the question of the week was, what do you give yourself permission to do? For example, I give myself permission to say no to loved ones in order to protect my mental health. So then I allowed everyone to kind of insert their own permission, right? And so I had a couple people reply, and their replies were, I give myself permission to disconnect from family and people who no longer reciprocate gratitude and courtesy. That's a powerful one. I love that one. I also had a couple other replies. I had someone say, I allow myself permission to distance myself from people who expect me to always be there. I be feeling guilty though, which is what that person had said. So again, that's a permission that individual is now allowing themselves to do and reminding themselves that they are allowed to do that. Another permission is I eat healthy. So I give myself permission to eat healthy, but allow myself to eat wings regularly because they are my fave. I am with you. I love me some boneless wings. And I don't want to even get into an argument about how boneless wings isn't wings. They're just chicken nuggets. No, I'm going to nip it in the butt now. I like them. I like the fact that I can take a fork, pop it in my mouth. But we're going to move away from that conversation because that one is always a trap for me. Another permission that I got is I give myself permission to spend a ridiculous amount of money on Starbucks. There's absolutely no judgment there. There are some good Starbucks drinks, but that is what that person wanted to give themselves permission to do. And this is a judgment-free zone. So I am all for it. Sis, continue getting that Starbucks that you deserve. Another person also submitted and said, I give myself permission to take a day off from work. May that be home when they're home, or may that be when they're in the office. So again, that person is allowing themselves that time to decompress from works and just all the things that work kind of has and work-related things. All right. right. So now that I shared a little bit with you guys about some of your responses, I kind of want to share some of my own experience with permission, how I kind of discovered why it's really important, and kind of where I am today with it. So when I started kind of really learning about permissions, before I even started learning, I often felt really guilty for setting boundaries, setting the things that I needed, stating the things that I needed, and really taking care of myself. So I felt this extreme guilt if I were to really stand up for myself, really stand up for what I need, what I want from others and myself. And there was just this guilt circling around that I don't understand how or why it was there, but it was there. So and I imagine that so many other people feel this exact same way. There's just this underlying guilt for standing up for what we need and vocalizing and expressing what we need to other people. And especially depending on where you grew up, the company that was around you, your community, there's so many different factors on why being able to stand up for ourselves, to advocate for ourselves can be really difficult. And sometimes we feel like we don't deserve that permission. And that's honestly where I felt like I was coming from for a while. I don't know if I technically felt like I deserved the permission to feel the way I felt, to do the things that I needed to do for myself, to advocate for myself. Like, I honestly can't tell you if I felt like I really deserved it. And that was the earlier mindset that I had, but it was there. And that mindset, or that saying where it's like, someone else might have it worse than you. I felt like that was one that really stuck with me. I felt like that was one that really stopped me from allowing myself to have the permission to do things that I needed to do for myself, right? For example, if I wanted to feel sad, I would literally look at myself and be like, why am I sad when someone else has it way worse than I do? And I wouldn't allow myself the permission to be sad because someone else had it way worse than I did. And when I look back on that, that's not healthy. It's not, right? Like, I always say now that your sadness is just as important as someone else's, no matter the circumstances. And that's come along the way as I've been learning how to give myself permission, how to allow myself to feel those feelings, how to allow myself the forgiveness, the kindness. I'm learning, and I'm continuing learning the permission and things I want to give myself permission to do. And so that's one of the things that kind of pops into my mind when it comes to permission and giving myself permission, right? Oftentimes we don't feel, or a lot of times we might not feel like we deserve it. But this is why I wanted to create that podcast episode, because we do deserve it. You deserve it. I deserve it. We all deserve to give ourselves permission to feel, to advocate for ourselves, right? To try new things. There's so many things in life that we should allow ourselves permission to do, but we just don't feel like we are worthy. And we absolutely are worthy of living the life that we want to live, right? And allowing ourselves to go through the emotions that we want to feel, or we should be feeling, not even just want to feel, what we should be feeling, right? So that's kind of a little bit about my experience when it comes to permissions and permission giving to myself. Have I been able to have I been learning? Like I said earlier, yeah, I've been learning. I've been learning a lot about, what are the things that I can give myself permission to do? Where are the things I want to eventually be in giving myself permission? So there's some things that I want to learn and want to start giving myself permission to do. And I find it interesting because it just feels like permission giving and boundary setting are so heavily correlated. And I felt that myself because, again, back not even that long ago, maybe a year ago, okay, maybe like over a year ago, I didn't have the best boundary setting, depending on who I was interacting with. So in those situations, I wasn't giving myself permission to do a lot of things. And it kind of correlates back that I look at it, I had poor boundary setting skills. Therefore, I really never gave myself permission to do anything. Now, today, as I'm sitting in front of you or you're listening to me, I have seen myself create way better boundaries. Therefore, I have been allowing myself a lot more permission. So now that you heard a little bit about kind of where my mindset is at when it comes to permission giving, I kind of want to explore some permission giving that you can give yourself or your loved ones could give to. And maybe you guys can kind of correlate and kind of curate these permissions that you can give yourself or one another. I think it's really useful and something that could be a good tool for ourselves. It's so empowering when we can give ourselves that permission. So some of the ones that I kind of have for everyone lined up, and these I found online, but I also have a couple of my own, right? But I thought these were really good basis ones that I wanted to share with everyone. So some of the permissions that you can give to yourself is, you have the permission to be angry. You have the permission to be angry at yourself, to feel whatever emotions that you want to feel. You have the permission to do so. Oftentimes we think that being angry is this terrible emotion to feel. And I completely understand why we might think that that might be a really intense emotion that we don't want to feel. But it's crucial for us to feel that emotion. So give yourself permission to be angry. Oftentimes when my friends come to me and they say, do I have a right to feel angry? I tell them all the time, if you're feeling it, feel it, right? There's no wrong or right emotions to feel at a certain situation. If that's what your body naturally reacted to, feel it, sit with it, right? Absorb it. So give yourself permission to be angry, because oftentimes when we don't give ourselves permission to be angry, we might sweep it underneath the rug, try to kick it out to the curb, but it finds a way back into us. It finds a way back to us. So give yourself to sit with that anger. Another permission that you can give yourself is the permission to kind of let go of goals or to quit or give up. In society, we're really pressed on we can never quit, you can never give up, you must always be striving to do any goal that you ever set out to do, right? There's not an if and buts. There's no A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. There's none of those, right? It's just plan A, stick with it. I get it, right? I get stuck in that mindset often too. But I have to remind myself that it is okay, and I give myself permission to walk away, to quit, to give up. If I know that it is hindering things for me, like if it's hindering my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health, if it's just not bringing me joy, I give myself that permission to do so, because that's honestly where a lot of growth comes from, right? Again, society really paints giving up, quitting, moving on, walking away from something as this worst case scenario. You should never do it. That makes you a failure. No, I don't think that makes you a failure. I think that means that you really know yourself truly well. When something just doesn't work for you in a lot of cases, and therefore you want to find something different for a different path for you, right? So again, be mindful that that is okay. Another one that is really good is you have permission to hope for better. So again, oftentimes we might be really sitting in a space where we think nothing is going to get better. What's the point of thinking anything is going to get better? It's always, I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop. No, you have the permission to hope for better. You have the permission to think that better days are going to come, because they will. but give yourself that permission to do so. Another one that I thought was really interesting is that you have the permission to lie. So, again, please take this with a grain of salt. I don't mean lying to get out of a crime, no, I don't mean like that, right? I mean more of a scenario. Let's say someone asks you to, or let's say your boss asks you to, pick up some extra hours, pick up another day, and maybe you're not at the space right now where you can say fully no. That's where I would say it's okay to lie, right? It's okay to say, I have another obligation, I can't, even though you might not have another obligation. I give you the permission to lie in that circumstance. So if you find it tough right now creating those boundaries, right? It can be a place to start, a small place to start. Please take this with a grain of salt. You don't want to be lying every single minute. No, Aaliyah's not advocating for that. What I am crucially saying though is when I started boundary building, I oftentimes would try to find a different avenue. So I wouldn't say no, but I wouldn't say, I would say oh, I have another obligation, I have another plan, I have to do this, that, and the third that day, instead of just saying no. Or saying, no, I can't do that. That was hard for me at this point. So I did those little lies. Please, don't go around lying. I'm just saying, please don't. But again, you have the permission to lie when it comes to those type of circumstances. Another one that I thought was really good was that you have permission to be selfish. I know often people don't say that. You always want to think that you want to be selfless. But you have the permission to be selfish. You have the permission to solely want to take care of yourself at a certain period of time of your life. So if you feel like you really need to take care of yourself, you have permission to be selfish, okay? You have the permission to say no. You have the permission to leave a relationship. You have the permission to do so if it means taking care of yourself. And oftentimes, again, people I don't think really think that we should be selfish. But I'm going to tell you that we are allowed to be selfish because we're human beings, okay? I have days where I'm just completely selfish, and I'm okay with that because I know I need to take care of myself, and everything else will fall into place. But at this moment, I need to be selfish with my time, with my space, with my mental, with all that. I need to be selfish with it. You also have permission to say no. That's an easy one. It's not easy, but you have permission to say no. You also have permission to take a day off. So what do I mean by that? To take a day off, to take a mental health day. What I mean by that is you have permission to take that time off for yourself, to recoup, to rejuvenate, right? You aren't a machine. You aren't the company's no, you are beautifully crafted individual person. Whoever's listening to this, whoever's watching, please treat yourself with kindness and remind yourself that you are more than the position that you work at. You are uniquely you, and you need to take care of that specialness that you have. So if you need to take a day off, please give yourself permission to take a day off, okay? Prevent that burnout. You have permission to take vacation. You have permission to do that. You earned it. You deserve it. You are amazing. So please take some time off for yourself. Take a staycation. Please. You have permission. You also have permission to pick up new activities if you want without the explanation of why, or expectation of competing or being top notch at that activity. You have permission to pick up things that bring you joy. Okay, you have permission to choose who is in your inner circle. You have permission to truly bring anything into your life circle that fulfills you. So now that we were able to talk about some of the things that you have permission, I guarantee that you can probably think of 10,000 more things that you want to give yourself permission to do. But those were only some of the ones that I kind of thought of and some that I found on the internet as well. So now we're going to move into how do we kind of get this into practice? How do I remind myself that I have the permission to do these things? Where do I put them? What do I do? That, and the third. Well, when you are creating your permissions, right? There's many ways that you can do it. You can curate them and put them on your screensaver, on your laptop, or on your phone screensaver. You can create really pretty ones on Canva, on Pinterest. You can find a couple on there. You can also curate some. There's so many. You can create it yourself if you want to, but you can create those, put it as your desktop screensaver so you're constantly seeing them and being reminded of them. You can also just sit down and create a list of permissions that you want to give yourself. So I give myself permission to, and you can write down what you give yourself permission to do. You can also create really creative art with it if that's something that you wanted to do. You can also get these really cool permission slips, right? And so, how I was talking earlier in the podcast about how there are like permission slips for kids? Well, you can get these like permission slips and it goes, I blank. So that's where you insert your name. So for example, I, Aaliyah Grace Dean, give myself permission to, and then I would write down what I give myself permission to, right? So with those, I think those are really unique. That's something that you can work with a professional, as well as, maybe some close people that you love. And you can write those permissions out. You can print out as many as you want. You can just type in Google free mental health permission slips. And there's a couple of them that I found myself. Or you can even create them. So you can even just cut out some, or even get like index cards and write it out for yourself. Make them look cute if you want. And just fold it up, put it behind your phone. Maybe you can put it in your back pocket, keep it on you. So, when you're feeling stressed, maybe there's a stressful situation going on, you can just pull it out, look at it, and remind yourself what you give yourself permission to do today. So if it is, I give myself permission to take a 5-minute walk when I feel stressed. And let's say you're at work and you're feeling stressed, you can pull it out, be like, oh, yeah. Or you can even just post them to your walls. So you can put them in your bedroom walls, your workspace walls, your office walls, whatever works for you. There's so many different ways, like I'm kind of brainstorming with you right now. So that's also a really good way to kind of just have your permissions with you. Nice reminder how you can give yourself that permission to do those things. So why is giving permissions really important? I think I touched bases on this earlier. Permissions are really important because we oftentimes go throughout life feeling really guilty for wanting to take care of ourselves to the fullest. So we might feel guilty about saying no. We might feel guilty about not doing so and so, even though that's not something that we truly wanted to do. But I wanted to remind you why permissions are so important is because they're your permissions. They're curated by you. You're the only person who knows your own worldview and your own life circumstances, besides probably other people closest to you, but you truly understand what you need. And sometimes you might need some help. I know I do, but you truly have this authentic view of what you need in life. Therefore, you can really curate these specific permissions for yourself. And I think one of the easy ways is writing it down. But the second hardest part is following those permissions, right? So I always say to people, it's a habitual thing. So you always just have to practice, practice on your good days. And if you mess up, that is okay. It's okay to mess up. It's okay not to have followed that permission, right? We're human. Give yourself permission to be kind to yourself, to be forgiving. Forgive yourself for the mistakes you've made. Be kind to yourself every single waking moment. You are your own best friend. Be kind to yourself. Forgive yourself. Give yourself that permission to do those things. So if you mess up on a permission, give yourself permission again to be kind to yourself. Give yourself permission to forgive yourself and try it again later on. But keep trying, always trying, and give yourself permission to try again because you're deserving of it. So, I hope that really did help. This podcast episode really was just a reminder that you are human, I'm human, and we should allow ourselves certain permissions, right? We work so hard, we're doing so much. I'm really proud of you, and I'm proud of myself. And I want to remind us that we deserve a lot of permissions. We deserve to give ourselves permission to be proud of ourselves, And I wanted this conversation to really just be a reminder of how well you are doing. And if no one has told you lately, I am really proud of you. And I'm just so happy that you're here. I'm so happy that you gave yourself permission to listen or watch my podcast today. So I hope that this podcast episode was kind of inspiring. I hope that it was empowering. And I hope that you kind of left out of this podcast episode feeling like you have a new tool of giving yourself permission. On that note, my name is Aaliyah Gracine. Follow me on my official Instagram, _Grace. Also, while you're at it, share this with a friend or a family member, a colleague of your choice if you would like, as well as leave a review on whatever you are listening to. So if it's Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. Spotify, and whatever other platform that you're listening on at this moment, please leave a review. I would love it so much. And if you're also watching on YouTube, please leave a comment and like the video and subscribe. My name is, again, Aaliyah Gracine. You are listening to Side Grace. Thank you so much for coming to my podcast episode today. I hope that you are here for next week so that you can hear a really good episode as well. Thank you so much and have a wonderful week.